Whenever an organization starts looking at network access control, or NAC, the conversation tends to get stuck. And it gets stuck on two big questions before you even get to the actual security stuff. First, who is going to manage the policy server? And second, what's the upfront cost for all the hardware and licenses? These are just infrastructure headaches. So in this explainer, we're going to dive into how a cloud-managed subscription model completely changes that whole conversation.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with that big shift in cost, moving from a capital expense to a simple subscription. Then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how this cloud-managed model actually works and look at some real-world examples. We'll also cover the managed service model for all you partners out there, talk about how you can switch between deployment types, and then we'll wrap it all up with a summary of the key takeaways. So let's kick things off with Section 1, the move from CapEx, that's capital expenditure of course, to a subscription. This is really all about the fundamental change in how you pay for and think about network access control. And this slide really nails the core idea. In your traditional NAC setup, you're on the hook for everything, the physical infrastructure and the security policy. But with a cloud-managed model, that responsibility gets split. All the infrastructure management is handled for you, which means your team gets to focus on the one thing that actually matters, managing your security policy. Okay, let's break down the direct comparison. On the on-premises side, you've got those big upfront capital costs for server hardware and software licenses, right? With cloud managed, those are just gone. Manual updates? Nope, they become automatic. Your internal IT team is no longer tied up doing server maintenance. Genians handles that. And here's the biggest shift. The payment model flips from a huge upfront capital expense to a predictable operational cost, either monthly or annually. So how does this all work in the real world? That brings us to Section 2, which is all about this division of responsibility. It's a really simple but powerful idea. Genios manages the policy server infrastructure, and your organization gets to focus purely on managing the security policy itself. So what's on Genian's side of the table? Well, they handle the entire installation and operation of the policy server, all of it running on AWS cloud infrastructure. They also take care of all the software updates automatically, which means your policy server is always on the latest release. Basically, all the hardware and infrastructure management, that's their job. And what do you, the organization, manage? Well, you're in the driver's seat for deploying network sensors in each of your broadcast domains. You're the one defining your security policies through the web console, configuring your node groups, and picking your enforcement methods. And this is really important. All 7 enforcement methods are exactly the same as they would be in an on-premises deployment. And, this model isn't brand new. The Genian NAC policy server has actually been available on the AWS marketplace since way back in September 2020. This gives you a choice. You can deploy the policy server yourself using an AWS AMI, or you can go with the cloud-managed service, where Genians just handles all the server operations for you. Okay, now for Section 3. Let's look at some deployments in practice. This is where we see how organizations are actually using this model. And what you're going to see is that it's not limited to just one size of company or one type of industry. For small and mid-sized companies, especially ones with a lean IT staff, this model is a total game changer, mostly because it just gets rid of server maintenance. For example, a US law firm was able to roll out enterprise-grade NAC without needing a single internal policy server. In another case, a US staffing firm got complete network visibility and control just by deploying sensors. That's it. So what about manufacturing and OT environments? Places where a lot of devices just don't support 802.1x. Well, the solution uses ARP-based Layer 2 control to cover all of those devices. A US manufacturer, for instance, used exactly this method to get control, and a Bulgarian bioethanol producer deployed a totally hardware-free solution that gave them immediate device visibility and access control. We're also seeing this model take off in retail and the public sector. A big global retailer actually migrated from their on-prem setup to the cloud-managed model. And get this, their existing network sensors stayed right where they were, no changes needed. And in the public sector, the subscription model just makes sense for budget cycles. The city of Kitchener in Ontario, for instance, adopted Genian NAC after trying it out with a self-service free trial. And this really shows you how fast this can happen. The city of Kitchener got full network visibility and control in just 1 week. And they deployed their network sensors on standard off-the-shelf Intel NUC hardware. Pretty amazing. Now, in the BFSI sector, that's banking, financial services, and insurance, cloud-managed NAC is being used all over the globe. They're using it to manage hundreds of branches from one single server, to get real-time asset inventories for compliance using a feature called GDPI, to use the built-in Radius server for 802.1x, and of course, to take advantage of that automated software maintenance. All right, let's switch gears a bit. We're on to Section 4, and this one is specifically for our MSP and MSSP partners. This is the managed service model, which is all about how you can deliver NAC as a service to your clients. So the most important thing here is the structure of this NAC as a service, or NAC as model. It's simple. Genians operates the back-end infrastructure. The partner's job is to deploy sensors at their customer sites and then manage the security policy. What does that mean? It means a partner can onboard a brand new customer without ever having to build out any new server infrastructure. This whole setup lets the partner focus on what they do best, right? Deploying sensors, designing smart security policies, and managing that customer relationship. They're not getting bogged down with policy server installs, software updates, or having to respond to server outages. Okay, moving on to Section 5, Deployment Transitions. A really key part of this whole model is the flexibility. An organization isn't locked into one thing forever. You can actually transition between the cloud and on-premises models as your needs change over time. So you might ask, why would you transition? Well, you might go from the cloud to on-premises if your data sovereignty rules change, or maybe if cloud connectivity becomes a problem. On the flip side, you could go from on-prem to the cloud if your IT staff gets smaller, or if you need to shift from a capital to an operational expense model. But here's the key takeaway. No matter which direction you go, you do not need to redeploy your sensors. And that brings us to our last section, the summary and next steps. Let's pull everything together and highlight the key takeaways for both organizations and for partners. For organizations, the summary really boils down to this. You can start with a subscription, so no need to buy an appliance. The policy server installation and all the maintenance, that's handled by Genians. You can expect to have full network visibility in about 2 to 3 days after you connect your sensors. Your enforcement options are exactly the same as an on-prem deployment, and you can switch between models without having to touch your sensors. And for all you MSP and MSSP partners out there, the key points are: Genians is operating the policy server, which frees you up to focus on your customers. You can add new customers without building new servers. You can manage those big enterprise-level customers all under one structure. And that 30-day trial lets you really validate the solution in your customer's own environment before you even launch the service. I think this quote from Gartner Peer Insights just sums up the whole administrative experience perfectly. Easy to deploy, easy to administer. It can be tailored to an organization's specific needs. And that tailoring part is so crucial. The organization keeps full control, deciding exactly which networks, which VLANs, and which segments are in or out of scope. So if you want to check this out for yourself, there's a 30-day free trial available over at genius.com. It gives you full access to the Professional and Enterprise Edition features. There's no sales call, you don't need a credit card to start, and you don't have to make any changes to your infrastructure. You even get technical support through Slack during the trial. And this is all from a company that has 21 years of experience, serves over 5,000 organizations, and offers 7 different enforcement methods all on one platform.